So the theme of tonight's evening is building the city of the future, and we believe that arts and culture is an essential, integral part of the city of the future. There are scientific studies that prove, talk to biologists, neurologists, that prove that if we haven't actively experienced something, we do not have the internal capability to miss it. So that's why it's so important to us to emphasize that nature is at stake, and that's why we've interwoven this theme of nature into the overarching theme of intellectual debate, highlighting technology, innovation, etc.
1851, when the first World Exhibition took place, 10% of the global population lived in cities. Today it's 50%. 2050 it will be 70%. For the future it is so important to create and design the right cities, the livable city, that makes good use of technology, that respects sustainability.
So metropolitan areas account for 80% of global energy consumption, 50% of solid and liquid waste production, and 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. The World Expo, since it plays a prominent role in this discussion, started discussing sustainability back in 1967 in Montreal, when R. Buckminster Fuller designed the US Pavilion and highlighted with his designs the importance of lightweight structures, energy and resource efficiency, all the way to the Expo in 2000 in Hanover, which is known for being the first one to really push sustainability to the fore.
Expos allows the world to reimagine new possibilities. You know, it gives us an opportunity to work together to see what we can achieve if for once we could put our differences aside and try and focus on one common goal. For a host city, it's an opportunity to reinvent themselves. Expos are collaborative platforms. They're there for education, for innovation, but also, maybe more importantly today than ever, for dialogue. In the 1990s, the United Nations created Agenda 21 in Rio, and in 1994, the BA passed a resolution asking that all expos in the future follow these big key challenges that humanity has to face. That means that here in Germany, Expo Hanover in 2000 was the first expo to follow Agenda 21. The theme was humankind, nature and technology. And since then, this has continued. We had Expo 2010 Shanghai, which I think must be closer to your hearts as well, because it was called Better City, Better Life, and it was all about urban sustainable development. China is undergoing something that every country is undergoing, which is rural populations are moving into cities. And how do we continue to develop our cities, these metropolises, sustainably for the future? It's an opportunity to really put the city front and center internationally, and to allow the host country, in a sense, to influence the global agenda that we have. One thing that is very important from a national perspective is that it allows you to mobilize all of your national and local actors, all your institutions, your industries, academia, and very importantly, civil society. It's more important to plan backwards, not forwards, to think of what we will leave behind for the citizens of Paris or Athens or London, and work our way back to what that expo could represent within the city. Shanghai also had a huge catalyst, not only on the site, but on the whole city. It catalyzed the expansion of their metro network. They also introduced a lot of innovations within the expo. They introduced something which is carried forward today. We still see it in expos, the best practice area. As you know, in expos, countries participate. You have some private participation, but they had an idea of, could we find new participants within an expo? And they decided cities and regions. And they wanted to show, because they are about urban sustainable development. I've seen it in German pavilions, I've seen it in Greek pavilions, in British pavilions. All over the world, everyone tells you of their dreams. And I think that's really important to be able to have, because we all have to dream to something better. We had Hamburg, I think from Germany, Hamburg House. This was the first passive house in China, and since then has gone on to lead other buildings that are done within Shanghai and within China. The urban development impact of this expo was 5.28 1.8 square kilometer industrial zone. They prioritized throughout the whole Expo low carbon, sustainable construction. They had legacy that entered long-term regeneration processes. And now you have 70 hectares of open green space, multiple public parks. Here, of course, the Expo site then went on to host COP28. There was a big push for public transport. Here, for example, in terms of innovation, you had 130 buildings that were digitally connected through Siemens' IoT platform, and that allowed the Expo to have real-time optimization of energy, water, security, and visitor comfort. And 80% of this infrastructure has been retained and now has become a lasting blueprint for human-centered, connected, and sustainable districts. The only thing I want to say before closing is, and it was on my last slide, is the support of the citizens. Nobody can do an Expo without the support of your citizens.
It is a grassroots initiative. There are a lot of people and partners who say, I believe in that future vision for our city, and that is something that really impresses me. The main challenges of our city is the question of housing, affordable housing, and how do we handle this big transformation in terms of climate neutrality and everything this is all about. And I have seen what happens when on one day 250,000 people visit one exposition. What happens when 150 different nations come together and show in their pavilions what they think about the future? Not only dreams, it's about ideas, it's about concepts, it's about reality and ideas that have a chance to become reality. The question, how do we want to live? What is the quality of life? How sustainable? How our cities work in the future, about mobility and all the things like that. Maybe the most important is, how do we want to save peace, democracy and freedom? And that is something the people and the countries who take part in an expo and to present themselves and to connect together and to work together, they are tackling these questions. Two very important things are for that absolutely important. One is innovation. Innovation in terms of our startup scene, innovation in terms of what do we do in the big growing fields of fintech, green tech, health tech, life science, games, deep tech, artificial intelligence. What do we do with our architecture? What do we do with all the things we have to face in the next upcoming years? I really wish that we find a solution to take all this engagement, all this huge work, all the people who stand for das neue Berlin, a mixed society, a society of diversity, a society which asks the question of the future and finds answers. That is important. We have our future places, yeah? It's the Urban Tech Republic on the former airport Tegel. It is the Clean Tech Business Park Marzahn. It is the Siemens Stadt Square. It is the Tempelhof area, the former airport. We have a lot of places, also the AI Square Hub in Berlin-Charlottenburg, or what is all the things which are developed around Dahlem, and the FUBIC, the FU Business Innovation Center, which is developed now at the moment. So we have a lot of projects which already invest in innovation. We have a lot of money taking this into account. A lot of our Berlin startups work on sustainability issues and on circular economy issues, and all these things the Expo is all about. So we can use what we have.
I think when we're talking about Expo or other places of hope and visions, I would say, it's all about a dream. And I think we all need dreams, especially in cities. We decided to develop a new city, not by just the vision of a person, a mayor or anybody. We set up a huge dialogue-based process with the citizens. What is your idea about Tempelhof, or about our airfield, or about our cargo areas? Today, so 15 years later now, it's built. We have more than 6,000 new jobs there, 10,000 new residents. We invested about 3 billion euro, not the city, but just investment in the city. It's like an expo area, because we could fulfill a dream. And at the beginning we decided, yes, we wanted to rebuild those areas, but it should be climate neutral 15 years ago. So we implemented what you call, Wolfgang Feist, the passive house standard in all the area, 100%. No building is excluded. This standard we set 17 years ago is today not the national standard. And we find investors globally, not in Heidelberg, because everybody said this is a crazy story. 3 years later, after they were built, they sold them for double of the price. Today, Heidelberg has rebuilt nearly 200 of those acres in just 15 years. It's one of the biggest programs in Germany. Biggest programs in Germany. And our city is 160,000 inhabitants. We decided to become the biggest refugee area or camp in the southern part of Germany. So about 80,000 refugees were coming every year to the city. 160,000 inhabitants, 80,000 refugees. Today, we have the lowest number of blue-colored political groups. So we achieve with a huge dialogue with the citizens that they accept. We had a lot of debates about also the problems, but they accept it. And today, we can say we have really achieved that we built all the new area in a very sustainable way. The citizens were involved. We have the lowest number of kids who fail in school, the highest number to go to high schools in Germany. When we started with about 100 cities. Today, we have about more than 15,000 cities who made a self-commitment to become climate neutral in 2030, 2035. Yeah? And this is a self-commitment, because the normal commitment is just signed by national governments, not by cities. So we take over this mainframe and implemented it on the local level. What we have done is the city become the biggest landlord. The city becomes the biggest developer. The city was setting up its own structures, own energy companies, who is serving now 100% of the city. Not with electricity, but with heat, with water, clean water, and all those resources. And we stay on the cash machine, because if you're dealing with energy, it's the biggest cash machine you have in your city. So I earned a lot of money by just running and selling energy. At the UN Forum of Mayors, we wanted to empower local governments. In all those countries where you have not the empowerment of local governments, you're not in charge with the key instrument. And I think we have to be aware, and that's a little bit my role at the UN Forum of Mayors, to empower cities. Mayors have to, and lady mayors have to stand up, fight for their empowerment, because when you go to the UN level, we are still sitting on the side table as NGOs. And we are not a normal NGO. We are dealing with the citizens for their dreams and for their empowerment.
I said it, I was very happy, no matter what happens with 2035 for Berlin. What was interesting was to see it as a grassroots project, as a bottoms-up project. It's very easy to have a prime minister, president, or chancellor say, I want this. It's much harder to get the people to decide it for themselves and then push it up top.
As you already know, we need to have our central stations, but the central station alone is not a game changer, which is important, and then that is what we discuss with the cities, that we can make it to a mobility hub, that we can build the incoming and the for those who are coming and for those who are leaving, kinds of real good mobility.
The quality of life depends upon the quality of our relationships. In my view, that's one of the most important topics of our time. As we are moving into big cities, and people like me maybe are building projects, I think that it's not only the environmental and the technology and the carbon, it's also a lot about relationships. And I think that the asset of the future is the asset where you will have soul and where you will have the possibility to build relationship between people.
There's a lot of moments when people say that expos will disappear, that there is no reason for it anymore. And yet, I still think that the real success of the expo is because people want to be face to face. People want to see each other and talk to each other. You want to smell, you want to feel, you want to touch everything. What's interesting about an expo is this real melting pot of nationalities that you suddenly bring in 158 countries participating in Japan. A country very strict on rules and the way they like things done. But it's incredible how they respected each other, how they found things in common, the commonalities that we find with each other.
You first talked about dreams. Franziska, Giffey talked about seeing is believing in order to build a positive future narrative. We talked about empowerment, that it is really important that different stakeholders from bottom up are being brought on board as well, that the city has agency over what is happening in the city and not just a passive actor in the game. And we talked about the importance of mobility in a city built around its citizens and not just around abstract things like streets or cars, the importance of relationships and the soul of a city, all very important points that also for me symbolize where we are going and where we should be going as a city in order to build the city.
Every woman knows her own tree. When I came to you, I was going to open my wings over that deserted city built of black stones and find a tree and perch on its branches and shout with pain. Every woman knows her own tree. That night, I flew. I passed over the city that darkness feared to enter. Having no shadow, the soul was lonely. I howled.